All right. Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Rules and Legislative Oversight Committee. We are hearing two bills. We are going to start with EA 21-0049, and that is the nomination of Yosef Kebede as a bureau head in the Department of Public Works for the Water and Wastewater Division. I have had the honor of working with Yosef on many different issues in my district. We all know about our aging infrastructure all across the city, and we know where you're faced with water main breaks and other incidents just about on a weekly basis. And so Yosef has been acting in an acting capacity, and he's done a tremendous job and has been very responsive and has really had teams out there doing great work and making sure that issues are getting resolved as quickly as possible. And so for that, I want to say thank you to Yosef for his work. He's one of the best we got. I mean, he works very hard, and so I'm happy to see that he's being nominated for a permanent capacity. And so I will give Yosef an opportunity to introduce himself, speak briefly, and then we'll turn it over to committee members and council members if they have any questions for him. So Yosef, without further ado, please take it away.
Thank you, Chairman Schleifer. Can you hear me clearly?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman, and also committee members, the Rules and Oversight Committee for holding this confirmation hearing. I also would like to thank Mayor Scott for putting my name forward for nomination, Director Mitchell for submitting my name for consideration, and of course the DPW leadership team for their support and counsel leading up to this hearing. But last but not least, I want to thank and note the women and men in the Bureau of Water and Wastewater, who, as we speak here right now, are on the ground replacing and fixing our infrastructure. They're at our treatment plants tirelessly troubleshooting and ensuring that what we treat, that we treat to standard. In our offices, strategizing, designing, and managing projects, and of course, our administrative personnel who are providing all the support and documentation to keep all of this going. I'm grateful, very grateful and very proud to work alongside these dedicated DPW Bureau of Water Wastewater personnel. And I would also like to highlight the 5 division chiefs on my team and the staff in the Bureau Head's office for their dedication and support. This job has truly been the most challenging and consuming job I have ever had. But it has also been the job that has given me the most satisfaction and sense of purpose. And if you would indulge me just for a minute, I would like to just briefly describe my background and how I got to where I am now. I came to the US with my family when I was 10 as a refugee. I'm originally from Ethiopia, proud son of Africa, also proud US citizen, Baltimore City resident for the past 7 years. And as Chairman Schleifer mentioned, last 3 years has been in his district, in District 5. As any immigrant, we had to adapt to a new culture, a new way of life, in a new environment, and the many discomforts that come with having your back up against the wall. And in many ways, it was a sink or swim scenario that would either elevate us to achieve our aspirations or bury us underneath a mountain of pain and struggle. I was fortunate, and we were fortunate, my family, to have had the support and opportunities to grow and thrive. I went to school, got a couple of engineering degrees, a business degree, developed an 18-year career in the private sector in consulting, business development, and entrepreneurship. That got me here to the city of Baltimore, to DPW, and to this Bureau of Water and Wastewater, where I started my tenure in June of 2019 in an acting capacity. To do my part in achieving the aspirations of the mayor, the director, and ultimately our ratepayers. I am truly invigorated by the diversity and the complexity of the challenges we face in the Bureau. I have the same sink or swim mindset from my early days in this country. We have many opportunities to elevate this bureau, and it is my job to make sure we take advantage. What keeps me motivated and humbled at the same time is the prospect of being a change agent in an environment that needs it. And now all the more working for a director who is a true leader and orchestrator of change. I serve at the pleasure of the director and the mayor, but doing my job well means serving the needs of our ratepayers. Um, but to serve our ratepayers, I do need to focus my energies on and be a strong advocate for my team, the men and women of the Bureau of Water Wastewater, ensuring they have what they need to do their jobs so that in turn we can serve our customers better together. So I've zoned in on three key priorities: human capital, HR, training, and procurement. All of it is encapsulated in this one statement that we go through quite a bit in the Bureau, which is people equipped with skills and resources. That is ultimately what it's all about. The people that we recruit, hire, and retain, the skills that we are able to give them an opportunity to get and expand on, and the tangible resources to do the work that they need to do. Um, as far as my philosophy on leadership, I believe very strongly in the concept of servant leadership, which to me is about meeting the needs of those you lead first. It's one of the core values in the Bureau and what I try my best to exhibit in my role. Practically speaking, it's about being a bridge to help those I am entrusted to lead get from where they are to where they want to be. In so doing, we all are what that much more likely to get to where we want to aspirations. So I'm proud of the 2 years with DPW, these 2 years that I've spent with DPW. Uh, so my commitment to provide you the information, support, and presence you need for your constituents. For the exhibited uh, again, like committee members, Mayor Scott, President Mitchell, for the opportunity.
Mr. Chair, it seems he's
And
breaking up. I can't really hear him.
All right, thank you, Yosef. And before we move on to members of the committee for any questions or comments that they have, if anybody on the attendee list is interested in testifying on this nominee, please raise your hand. If not, I will assume you're here for the next bill. For the next bill, we will go through the attendee list for public testimony. And so I will call on you in the order I see you on my screen. First up, Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yosef, I just want to thank you for everything that you do on a daily basis. As far as I am concerned, you embody what a public servant is. I can't even recount the number of times that I've had to call you at 2 in the morning or 6 in the morning, and you've picked up the phone and deployed a crew, or the number of times that you've been on site with me at a water main break, whatever the issue is. This guy answers the phone. So as far as I'm concerned, he has my support. And I commend Mayor Scott and Director Mitchell for moving this forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Conway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to acknowledge Mr. Kebede's contribution to the city and your public service. It means a lot to have somebody like you who's willing to contribute to the city and address the issues that we have. I do have a question. I want to really begin to dig into what you've seen in your last 2 years with the city to be some of the biggest challenges in front of us. And if you could try to dig into just a little bit how you foresee us addressing those challenges.
Thank you for the question, Councilman Conway. I think in the statement I made about focusing in on the needs of our employees is probably where I would start. In that there's a need to test the temperature and continually test the temperature and continually try to improve our management of staff. Ultimately, it is the men and women that are on the front lines that are going to be doing the work that we rely on them to do. Um, and if they're taken care of, the chances are great that they will take care of their duties. So I think keeping the eye on the ball from a management and making sure that we are providing opportunities for growth, real career opportunities in this department and in this bureau is one of the key challenges, but also opportunities that I see.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next up, Councilwoman Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And also, Mr. Kebede, you really have been right there with us when things are happening. And I really do appreciate how you're very communicative, not just to me, but also constituents directly. And I think that's very important. So I really do appreciate that. I do have a question. You've been clear a couple of times now about how you want to that you want to make sure that the team has everything that they need to be able to succeed. And I want to see if you could tell me a little bit about how we make sure that the women of the department and the division are able to be supported and also elevate in their positions. I've heard a couple of times, and this isn't under you, this is, a lot of years of culture of a very male dominated field that some of the women are not feeling supported. And so I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that. We cannot hear you. You're breaking up, sir. Mr. Chair, I cannot hear him.
Yosef, I see that you're having some technical difficulties. Maybe you want to try turning off your camera and just respond via audio. Sometimes that solves the bandwidth issues.
Mr. Chair, I can try and address it from my desk. Plus, the vice president is having trouble logging in, so I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to leave for about 2 minutes to go to the other station.
Okay.
Nina, wonder if we can ask the mayor's office to help Mr. Kebede with his technology.
I'm calling him.
Thank you.
Uh, Is that better now? Can you hear me? Camera's off.
Yes. Yeah, we can
Yes,
we
sir.
can hear you. Did you hear Councilwoman Ramos's question?
I did. I heard the whole question. I apologize. I am at Back River, so the connection can be a little spotty at times here. So I'll do my best to be clear. So thank you for the question, Councilwoman Ramos. You are correct. I mean, a lot of the classifications in the bureau, many of the classifications are male dominated, and there's a need to establish a culture that is welcoming and is not doesn't create barriers for women to perform duties that typically men have dominated in. Now, there's an effort, within the bureau to establish focus groups to address some of the key culture issues within each yard, within each plant. The staff in my office have are using pretty cool technology like Mentimeter to put together groups of employees without the presence of supervisors, so that real issues can be brought up and discussed. And some of those issues are about gender equity. It's not something that we're going to turn the tide on immediately, but as we open up the conversation and allow people to be more free and open about their misgivings, about opportunities that are afforded them or not, that would give us a good path as management to identify real areas of improvement. But it is definitely an issue that needs to be addressed, but will take some time to address.
I appreciate that you're focused on that. If Mr. Chair, if I can have a follow-up, I think it's more than just it is important to be able to have opportunities for women to be able to be promoted, et cetera. But we also need to make sure we have a culture where women are not retaliated against, ridiculed, et cetera. And so I just want to make sure through your commitment here today that that is something that you're committed to improving.
Absolutely. And thank you for that question.
Thank you, Mr. Kebede, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Burnett.
I don't have any questions, Mr. Chair. It's been a pleasure working with Yosef on issues ranging from wastewater backups, flooding, your everyday water main breaks, et cetera, et cetera. Always found them to be very accessible, accountable, and transparent, which is refreshing with any agency head to have a good partner in the work. So no other questions, but thank you, Yosef, for your commitment to the work.
Thank you. Council Vice President Middleton.
No questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I see Councilman Dorsey's also on here. Do you have anything to add to this hearing?
Hello, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm on here for my bill hearing on whistleblowers, but I will just, while I'm here, say Yosef Kebede is a great public servant, and I'm just always refreshed by my dealings with him. As everybody else here has said, I do think, responsiveness to elected officials is not the hallmark of great public service. It's the leadership that they bring when they're not getting those calls from elected officials. And from everything that I can tell, Yosef Kebede has been excellent in that capacity as a leader. And I look forward to the city and the water customers of the metropolitan drinking system continuing to benefit from his leadership. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other colleagues have anything else to add before we move into a vote? Go ahead, Councilman Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have one more question, if you don't mind. Mr. Kebede, we have a very aging infrastructure, as you noted. And often I know you kind of feel like you're sort of jumping around from emergency to emergency. Is there a plan in place? Are you putting a plan in place so that we can be a little bit more proactive in making sure that we're, addressing our infrastructure? I know that's been a struggle for our city just because we have so many emergencies.
Yes, and that is a challenge of many cities like Baltimore. But ultimately, where we want to be is right now. A lot of our effort is spent with corrective maintenance. So we are responding to these emergencies. We do have some effort in preventive, proactive maintenance, which we are continuing to develop right now with the support of external stakeholders, but eventually bring a lot of that work in-house so that we can take advantage of technology to predict failures, for instance. So really, where I would like to see us go as a bureau when it comes to the buried infrastructure that we have is maybe 40% of the effort spent on corrective maintenance, another 40% spent on preventive, and then the remainder spent on predictive maintenance, utilizing technologies. So that's the ultimate goal, but it will take, again, like I mentioned, having the right people, making sure that they're trained, and having the appropriate resources to establish a bona fide preventive and predictive maintenance program.
Thank you. And with that timeline, do you think that gets us closer to implementing the consent decree that we're under from the EPA a lot quicker? We continue to get extensions and extensions and extensions for lots of different reasons.
So the consent decree, the timeline on that is, by 2030, we should have completed the second phase of the consent decree. Some of the extensions that we have had to get are for some phase one projects that have trailed a little behind. But as we track through the completion and the execution of these consent decree projects, we will see, and we are seeing, bits and pieces of the results and the impact in terms of a much more sealed sewer system that does not allow for the introduction of a lot of infiltration and inflow, and thereby reduces the number or the volume of sanitary sewer overflows. On the water side, we do have a target of 15 miles per year of replacement of water lines. That in itself will bring down the number of, and is bringing down the number of main breaks. So there's going to be a lot of catch up on the front end, but as we get to the end of the sewer consent decree and a lot of these other initiatives that we're involved in now, we will have a system that is dramatically different or improved from where we are today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Conway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got one more question as well, and I kind of just want to get a sense for Mr. Kebede, how we're thinking about this at the moment. We're fully aware of the impact that climate change has on stormwater in our city. We're seeing more intense storms. We're seeing more frequent intense storms. I'm curious how we're beginning to think about our approach to this more holistically, certainly from a capacity and infrastructure perspective. But if there's any effort at this moment to think more broadly about our additional built infrastructure and ways that can be taken into account, are you aware of any efforts at the moment?
Under the administration's leadership, there is the Sustainability and Climate Resilience Working Group that we just had a kickoff for, I believe, yesterday. And one of the subcommittees is flooding, urban flooding that we experience here in Baltimore. So along with that comes, looking at that issue, like you said, holistically, but there's a need to update our design guidelines, for instance. A lot of these guidelines are a little outdated, and as we have seen the impact of climate change, the weather patterns we're seeing today are not what we're seeing back in the 70s or 60s. So that's one of the efforts that we are embarking on is making sure that our design guidelines are actually realistic and are responsive to the impact of climate change. Along with that, we have assets throughout the city that need to be protected should there be a surge, a storm surge or flooding or what have you, because we are a coastal city. So another effort that is underway is to assess the hazards that these assets are facing. Should we have a torrential downpour and extreme flooding conditions. And once we assess the hazards, the next step would be to design the hardening of these assets, either through elevating the pumping stations or the switch gears or whatever electrical equipment might be exposed, or putting embankments and other protections. So those are efforts that are clearly underway now. And then also just, partnering and talking to utilities that have probably done a little bit more or further down the road, and learning some lessons from them so that we can apply it accordingly here.
It's good to hear that there's some work going on this already, and I had a chance to touch with the touch base with the mayor's office about the work group that you referenced, the resiliency work group. This is definitely something that I'm very interested in digging into, and look forward to working with you on that. I'm really worried about some of the city's long-term investments, and I'm not just thinking stormwater infrastructure, but then also buildings, cars, and other infrastructure that gets significantly damaged or destroyed because of stormwater. A number of my colleagues on this call have had recent stormwater disasters in their neighborhood, in their districts. Councilman Ramos, Councilman Burnett, and others. So I'm really interested in working with you to think more broadly about that, what's in your control and what may not be in your control, but certainly you should have some insight in influencing policies going forward. So look forward to working with you on that, and just looking forward to your insights on it.
Thank you. Yes.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Colleagues, anybody else? No? Okay, so I don't typically do this, but I will, as chair, move the motion instead of asking for a motion. So I'd like to make a motion that we confirm Yosef Kebede as a bureau head over water and wastewater.
Second,
second,
Costello.
second by Councilman Costello. Richard, if we can do a roll call.
We ready for a roll call, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Chair Schleifer.
Yes.
Chair Schleifer votes aye. Mr. Burnett.
Yes.
Mr. Burnett votes aye. Mr. Costello.
Aye.
Mr. Costello votes aye. Vice President Middleton.
Aye.
Vice President Middleton votes aye. Member Ramos.
Yes.
Member Ramos votes aye. I understand Mr. Torrance is absent. Okay. Mr. Conway.
Aye.
Mr. Conway votes aye. Mr. Chair, there's 6 votes in the affirmative, no negatives. This matter can go to second read at Monday's meeting.
Thank you very much, and congratulations, Yosef. And you're welcome to sign off now so we can proceed for the next hearing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good day.